You're live with Omar Moore on this Saturday. Hello to everybody. Thank you very much indeed for joining. It's a pleasure to have you here. Hello, Len. Hi. How are you? It's nice to see you. I do hope that everybody is well, whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching this later on. I just wanted to do this today because, of course, we know the news about what has happened in Iran, what is clearly an illegal bombing and attack on Iran by the United States through Donald Trump and by Israel as well. And obviously, this is a violation of international law. And under the Article 51 of Chapter 7 of the Security Council UN bylaws, Iran had every right to respond, which it did today. I by no means defend the Iranian regime. The point I'm making here with this Substack Live, and welcome to it, everybody, is that I want to just briefly give you a little bit of the history between Iran and the United States. A lot more of what I'm going to talk about is the more recent history between the two countries and some of the things that have happened, and also a little bit of history from a little bit further back in the past. So I'm going to do that as quickly as I possibly can because at 8 p.m. Eastern, the NAACP Image Awards, I know that sounds awfully trivial based after what the subject matter is, but the NAACP Image Awards is tonight live at 8 p.m. Eastern on BET television, BETHER, that's BET Her, and CBS. And I would urge you to watch that. Speaking of which, I'm also wearing black apparel, Actively Black. Please patronize Black-owned businesses, activelyblack.com. Actively Black is a terrific brand, and I'm really proud to wear this. I bought this a few weeks ago, and I love it. This is sold out now. Anyway, that's what I want to say about all of that. I want to get to now the reason why I'm doing this, which is Iran and the United States, what you need to know. And you may know some of this already, but what you need to know, I'm going to provide you some other information that you might want to look at as well. Now, Al Jazeera, first of all, is a really good place to go to watch coverage. That's a really good resource. I do really advise you to look at them as well. But independently of that, I want to just talk to you about Iran and the US. Now, as you know, there have been efforts for a long time by the United States to topple Iran in various ways, get rid of their elected leaders, get rid of their regimes. And we saw this back in 1953. Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was president at the time of this country, hatched a plan with the CIA. The CIA actually were brought to this first by the British. So my native Brits, through MI6, decided to hatch this plan. They passed it on to Dwight D. Eisenhower and the CIA. Initially, the CIA had been reluctant to do this, but they ended up falling in line with it because the British, who of course are a very strong ally to the United States, had these oil interests it wanted to protect. And even though Iran now has about 4% of the world's oil, it's still a precious resource and a precious commodity. So back in 1953, there was a coup that the Shah, who is the monarch of Iran, agreed to topple the prime minister or president of Israel of Iran, Mossadegh. Now, Mossadegh eventually did get overthrown in 1953. And what you end up having is the monarch in charge. There was a lot of tension prior to Mossadegh's overthrow between his government and the monarchy in Iran. Bottom line is that once the British and the Americans, through Alan Dulles of the CIA and Dwight D. Eisenhower and British secret intelligence through MI6, combined to overthrow the lawfully elected leader, by the way, Mossadegh, in Iran, you had the Shah take over. Now, the Shah is essentially the king, the monarch. So Iran became a monarch-based rulership. And, you know, the king, the Shah, was not a nice person to the Iranians, to the Iranian people. So that kind of monarchy ruled from 1953 all the way to 1979, where there was an uprising. The Islamic Revolution came along and installed instead the supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khomeini, who I think passed away several years ago. And upon his passing, you had this new leader, Khomeini, who published reports. There are no published reports that confirm that he is no longer with us, by the way. Um, Only one person or two people in the world have declared that he is no longer here. Now, until I get independent confirmation from other sources, Iran has pushed back and said that he is not dead. Until we find that out, we cannot presume anything. But my point here, if you can follow me for a moment, is that the present leader, the second supreme leader, who is the present leader, Khamenei, um, back in 2015, entered into an agreement with President Obama. That agreement was called the JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. It was literally a 150-page document that was agreed to not only by the Iranians, but was agreed to by the United Kingdom, Russia, France, Germany, and the European Union. I may have left out one or two other countries. These were all signatories to President Obama's framework of an agreement. This was agreement. This was a solid agreement in 2015. And literally, thank you for smashing those hearts. That's really important. And thank you all for being here. Literally, this was an agreement hashed out between President Obama and those nations I just mentioned. Iran agreed to it. They were all signatories. This was in 2015. And what happened in 2015? I think a lot of people have forgotten this. And I took the pains to actually print this out. The 47 Traitors Letter. Now, I don't know if you remember this, fellow viewers, but the 47 Traitors Letter was the infamous letter written by Republican Senator Tom Cotton back on March the 9th of 2015, as you can probably see right there. It is a one-page letter, and 47 United States senators, all Republican, signed off on that letter. I'll tell you what that letter says in a moment. These are some of the signatures. I will actually post this on my Substack afterwards. These are just some of the signatures of the Republican senators in this country who signed off on what I'm about to tell you about. These are all the signatures. In fact, many of these people are still in the US Senate, and some of them are actually running in the midterms. Right now, all these signatures, you may not recognize the penmanship. Actually, some of the penmanship's quite good. But, but the point is that 47 U.S. Republican senators agreed to this letter that Tom Cotton wrote. And I'm going to read part of this to you. An open letter to the leaders of the Islamic Republic of Iran, March 9th, 2025. I mean, this is literally written on U.S. Senate letterhead. And so, bottom line is actually, I'll just probably summarize it. I will put the whole thing out on Substack afterwards. What this letter said was to the leaders of Iran, to Khamenei, who is currently in power in Iran, subject to independent corroboration and independent reports, to the same guy who Trump says is no longer here. 47 Republican senators in 2015 said to this same guy that's in power now in Iran, who is supposedly this, awful person. Now, listen, he's not the nicest person, but this guy we have to get rid of. And in this letter, these 47 traitors, and I call them that, and they were called that for this reason, that Tom Cotton wrote this. The presidency has 4 years in it. In this letter, I'm summarizing. 4 years, President Obama can only serve 2 4-year terms. And we senators can serve an unlimited number of 6-year terms. I'm pointing literally to this paragraph. I don't know if you can see that here, but it's hard to probably see here. Um, the letter is saying to the Iranian leader, Khamenei, really don't pay any attention to President Obama because in 2017, he's no longer going to be here because he's going to be leaving office. However, some of us are going to be here longer than Obama will because we have 6-year terms as senators. And so what you have to understand, Khamenei, is according to us Republican senators, is that in 2017, January, Obama's not going to be gone. So you really don't have to pay any attention to the JCPOA that you agreed to, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that you agreed to. And that Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action was this: Iran, make sure that you don't build any nuclear capability. Make sure that you don't seek any uranium or anything to build nuclear weapons with. And if you promise not to do that, and if you don't do that, if you agree to this JCPOA, we will lift trade sanctions and we will lift any economic sanctions at large against you. That's what the JCPOA was, because I didn't actually say that a few minutes ago. But that's what it was that all these countries plus Iran agreed to, because Iran had been sanctioned by the United States since 1995. So for 20 years, up to 2015, the United States government was putting trade sanctions on Iran, economic sanctions on Iran, all because of the issues with this nuclear program that they were trying to build, right? In fact, in 2011, the International Atomic Energy Agency said that there were some rumblings in Iran of building nuclear capability. Iran strenuously denied that and said this was a political thing that you're talking about. This is not true. And bottom line is, Obama, again, in 2015, had this agreement that said Iranian government, Khamenei, if you don't seek out any nuclear material or anything like that, and if you don't do any of this, if you agree to our agreement, we will lift the trade sanctions and the economic sanctions. Iran agreed to that, okay? That was the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, a 150-page document. This letter by these 47 Republicans, this letter written by Tom Cotton, who's still in office, still a Republican and still in the U.S. Senate, as are many of the signatories on this letter. This letter essentially says, don't listen to the agreement. Just ignore the agreement that you agreed to, Iran. Khamenei, the guy who's in power now, ignore that agreement. Because Obama's leaving here in 2017, and this agreement that you just agreed to is essentially an agreement that is, quote, I'm reading now from the letter specifically, nothing more than an executive agreement between President Obama and Ayatollah Khamenei. And then the next part of the paragraph, I don't know if you can really see that. I'm pointing to this paragraph here. I don't know if you can see that. But the next sentence is, the next president, writes Tom Cotton, could revoke such an executive agreement with the stroke of a pen, and future Congresses could modify the terms of the agreement at any time. We hope this letter enriches your knowledge of our constitutional system and promotes mutual understanding and clarity as nuclear negotiations progress. So what this letter is by Tom Cotton is a letter of treason, traitors. That's why it was called the 47 Traitors Letter, because you had 47 U.S. senators, Republican senators, literally go against the President of the United States, Barack Obama, to a foreign adversary in Iran, Khamenei. A lot of people have forgotten this letter. And this letter actually is quite hard to find online, or reasonably hard to find online. But I'm going to reproduce this and put this on my post. But the thing here is really, really clear. And you really do have to understand this isn't just about what's happened today. This has been about what's happened for almost 100 years, if not longer, right? Iran used to be called Persia, right? And this agreement from 2015, this letter from 2015 is really important because some of the same people who signed this letter, and I'm going to read out some of their names. I showed you the penmanship of these actual senators who signed this, right? John Cornyn. Ooh, oh my God, oh my God. Oh, John Cornyn. Ooh, I don't know if you can make out that piece of hand, that penmanship. That is the signature of Mr. John Cornyn. Oh yeah, he's running in the midterms in Texas, isn't he? Yeah, Republican running against the really crazy and corrupt Ken Paxton. Of course, on Tuesday, we'll find out who wins that one. We'll also find out on Tuesday on the Democratic side if Jasmine Crockett will advance to the next round. I really hope she does. I really do, by the way. Please, Texas, by the way, if you are in Texas, if you know someone in Texas, please vote for Jasmine Crockett. Thank you. That's the end of my public service announcement, but I want to get back to this. Other names on here, right? Oh, who's this? Who is this name? I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, that's right. Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell signed this. Joni Ernst, who's leaving the Senate. Oh, Joni Ernst. She signed this as well. Ooh, oh my goodness. What other traitors? Dan Sullivan, vulnerable Senate seat in Alaska. Oh my gosh, oh my God. He signed it as well. I can go on and on. Roger Wicker in Mississippi. He signed it too. I can go on and on. I'm not going to read out all of these people. But the bottom line is Shelley Moore Capito, Rusher Johnson, Tom Tillis, who's leaving, he signed it too. I can go through all of these names, but I don't want to waste your valuable time. Chuck Grassley, oh yeah, Chuck Grassley, he's on here too. Oh yes, Mr. Chuck, who is, I think he's 90 years old now, Chuck Grassley. Bill Cassidy, the doctor, the one who actually did vote for Trump's conviction in the second impeachment trial, the one who also voted for the nomination and confirmation of RFK Jr., that doctor, that Republican senator, Mr. Bill Cassidy. He signed it too. Who else signed it? John Barrasso, also a medical doctor. He signed it too. And I can go down. There's a load of other people here. Ben Sass, who sadly has pancreatic cancer. He signed it as well. Ben Sass. I don't know if you can see the signature there. He signed it as well. The bottom line is there are a lot of people. John Thune, the current majority leader of the Senate. Oh, yeah, there's his name. There's his name right there. And if you can see that, John Thune, he signed it too. So look, the bottom line is, fellow viewers, is that all of these folks, 47 Republican U.S. senators, signed off on a letter that Tom Cotton wrote, and there's Tom Cotton's signature at the bottom there. And I think, who's the other person here? I don't know who that, David Perdue, who's no longer in the Senate from Georgia. That's his signature, and that's Tom Cotton's. The bottom line here, the same Tom Cotton who wrote in the New York Times years ago that protesters in the U.S., George Floyd protesters, should be run over with a truck. The military should intervene. Oh boy, he wrote that in 2020, and look where we are in 2025 and 26. So the bottom line is that, and Tom Cotton may even run for president in 2028. The bottom line, the reason why I say that to you, because it's important, again, to really recognize the roots of where a lot of this is coming from in the recent 10 or 11 years. And so it's very important to see where this is coming from, because I want people to remember those names. I'll put this document up shortly, and let's see how they're reacting. Because in that letter that I read to you, at the end of the letter, and I'll read it again, the next president could revoke such an executive agreement with the stroke of a pen. And what happened in 2018? Donald J. Trump revoked Obama's Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. True story. True story. So Donald Trump comes in, and because Donald Trump is a stone cold racist, hates Obama to the core, hates all the great achievements. And he did have some, Obama did. There was some downsides with Obama too, but Obama has some important achievements, including this joint core, comprehensive plan of action. That was a significant thing. There'd been presidents for years, including Clinton, who tried to get an agreement like this, and with mixed results. They tried all kinds of things back in Clinton's day, right? So Obama managed to go further than a lot of other people did in actually getting this particular agreement together. And he got it together. And of course, Trump, oh my God, I can't imagine a black man could do this. So what did Trump do? He revoked the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And so what that meant is that Iran no longer had to mind its P's and Q's around developing potentially nuclear materials. Now that that agreement was revoked by Donald Trump, Iran was free to do whatever the hell it wanted to. I mean, Iran literally agreed in 2015 to this plan of action with the other countries and also the European Union, as I said earlier, to knock it off with any potential development of nuclear weaponry or any material therein in order to have those sanctions taken away. Trump comes in 2018 and says, we don't need this stinking thing. We're going to tell you that we don't go with this agreement anymore, and we're going to slap sanctions on you. The deal is off. So what happened is that Donald Trump put sanctions back on the Iranians, and the Iranians then began to develop, a nuclear program. Yes, they did. They started to build material. Now, there was no serious weaponry. There was no nuclear weapon because for the last 30-odd years, Bibi Netanyahu, the ultimate war criminal of war criminals, had been telling us all, Iran's got its hand on they've got its hand on a nuclear weapon, And of course, not true. Not true at all. But what is true is that over the last few years, Iran has had access to trying to build the kinds of materials that are needed to make weaponry. But that's thanks to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump said, oh no, I don't care whether Iran gets a nuclear weapon or tries to build one. I just hate Obama's guts because I'm a freaking anti-black racist. So I'm going to blow up his spot. And I didn't like what he said about me at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and he made a joke about me, and I can't take a joke because I'm thin-skinned. Right? And so now, because I'm an anti-black racist, because I hate Obama and every accomplishment that he had, all the positive things he did, I am now going to rip up this agreement. And that's what he did in 2018, his first go around in the White House. And that is what has led to all of the weapons making abilities or capabilities, or the buildup of the capabilities of Iran. Trump contributed to this. He's the one that's actually accelerated them building something or developing materials. Of course, nobody in the media is going to remind you, especially not, and I hope you don't watch them anymore, the corporate news media. They're not really going to say too much about that now. They're not going to talk about this 47 traitors letter. No. They're March 9th, 2015. Oh, no, they're not going to talk about Tom Cotton. They're probably interviewing Tom Cotton. So these Republican senators and Donald Trump are responsible. Now, the Iranians ignored the 47 traitors letter, but these folks, these senators, even though they were ignored by the Iranians, Donald Trump is the one who ripped this thing up. He ripped up the agreement, and the bottom line now is that we have what we have because of Donald Trump. And now Donald Trump's saying, "Oh yes, they have capability." Then he has the 12-day war with Israel as well, because Israel definitely doesn't want Iran anywhere near anything, because of course it destabilizes their position. If Iran gets any nuclear capability at all that's actually actionable, then Israel's at a standstill, right? Because you've got Israel who has nuclear weapons, and then you would have Iran. But Iran doesn't have any nuclear weapons. You know who does? As I said before, as some people have said here, Israel has. Number one. Number two, the United States has. The number three, India has. Number four, UK has. Number five, Pakistan has. Number six, France has. Right? These are some of the countries. I think there's about 8 or 9 countries that have nuclear weapons. And let me see if I can remember all of them. I'm doing this off the top of my head. UK, US, France, Russia, China, that makes 5, right? Israel makes 6, right? And Pakistan makes 7. I think that's the set. I think it's 7 or 8 or 9. There's probably a couple more, but those are some of the countries. North Korea, thank you. Donna, thank you, thank you, thank you. North Korea does as well. Can't believe I didn't remember that. So you've got, those are the countries, right, that actually have nuclear weapons. And who has actually used nuclear weapons on a population? That's right, the United States of America. The one nation of any nation that's actually used nuclear weapons on a population in any war at all is this country, President Truman. And that's why I don't, and he was a Democrat. This is why I don't look at Democrat versus Republican. Yes, these Republicans did what they did with that letter, and I emphasize that. But you have Democrats doing these things too. You have Democrats right now who aren't, who, kind of, some of them are quite quiet. Goes along with the money they're getting from certain places. APAC goes with all kinds of things. President Truman dropped bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, August 6th and August 9th of 1945. You know what the bombs are called? Fat Man and Little Boy. That's what the bombs are called. You know which plane they were dropped from? A plane called the Enola Gay, Enola Gay, Enola Gay. Dropped those bombs. We are the only nation on Earth that's actually used nuclear weaponry, nuclear bombs on a population, killing at least 250,000 people in Hiroshima, and I think at least 300,000 in Nagasaki. And Brittany, thank you for spelling it. Yeah, I did spell it as well, but Brittany's quite right. Brittany typed it in Enola Gay. That's the plane, as I mentioned earlier, that dropped those 2 bombs. In fact, there was also, by the way, a film back in the 1980s or early 90s actually literally called Fat Man and Little Boy. And who did it star? Paul Newman. Oh yeah, true story. Oh, Brittany writes, I work in a war museum, unfortunately. Oh, wow. My deepest condolences, Brittany. I'm going to wrap this up shortly because I want to go through that history so that you are aware contextually of what is happening, because you may not get this background, certainly from the media that you may watch. And I hope, that you are discerning in the kind of things you watch and read and listen to. And maybe some folks on Substack, some may talk about this history, some may not. But I wanted to talk about that 47 Traitors letter because it's very important to understanding this. Some of these same forces that are pushing for regime change and the alignment with Israel, and Israel wanting the Ayatollah out of the way, the supreme leader Khamenei out of the way. And again, Khamenei is no nice guy hero type at all. He suppresses any kind of resistance and dissent. There's no real First Amendment. You can't speak out negatively at all against the regime there, against the supreme leader there. You could go to prison there if you do, or worse. It's like Putin in Russia. You can't go to Russia. I don't care who you are. You cannot go to Russia and speak ill of Vladimir Putin. If you do, you could be jailed. You could be literally arrested and you could be jailed, and worse. Yeah. Empathy is a superpower. Absolutely. Beheaded. I mean, you literally you could face those kinds of things in Iran, and you certainly could find yourself in a lot of trouble in Russia if you speak out against these regimes. Now, this is where I want to get to here. We're almost at 8 p.m. Um, Here's what I really want to get to now. We don't know whether or not, as of the time I'm recording this and as the time you're watching this live, we don't know for sure whether Khamenei, the same Khamenei that those 47 traitorous Republican senators were writing to, saying, oh, oh my gosh, if you just disregard this thing, we could give you something better. I mean, this has been a theme throughout U.S. history. This happened with Nixon in '68 with Anna Chennault, the spy who, Nixon was convincing, committing treason as a private citizen. Or, this is not, he was calling people and saying, telling Anna Chennault to direct the peace talks be canceled, to tell the South Vietnamese to walk away from the Paris peace talks around Vietnam. And they did. And Nixon said, if you just walk away from the table, if I get into the White House, I'll give you a better deal. Oh, yeah. That led to the phone call between LBJ and Republican Senate leader Everett Dirksen at the time in October of 1968, in which uh, uh, LBJ said to Everett Dirksen, well, that's treason, man. We can't have Richard Nixon doing this. My God, Everett, that's treason. And then Everett Dirksen, and there's audio recording of this, by the way, and Everett Dirksen says, I know. He says, I know, right? And then what happens? Because LBJ doesn't run again in 68. So then what happens? Nixon wins in 68 by a 1.5% over Hubert Humphrey in the turbulent 1968 year where King was assassinated, RFK was assassinated. He had 68 with the convention and the Democratic Convention in Chicago. All that backdrop. Nixon makes it in, and the war rages on. And then he gets impeached, of course. He gets booted out. He resigns in 1974. So that's a bit of the history. But right now, we have no idea, as of this recording, if Khamenei is alive or dead. We don't know that. Iran has strenuously denied it. They say that he's alive. There are reports about this in Al Jazeera, according to officials close to him, that he's alive. We don't know what's true. We don't know what's false, right? We don't know, right? But the bottom line here is this. Keep your eyes open. Be careful. Be discerning readers and consumers of information. Read a bit more about the history. In fact, Stephen Kinzer wrote a book. He's written several books. One of them is this book called Overthrow, right? And this is about a century of regime change, right? This book's a really good book. He also wrote a book that's much more, and I don't presently have the other book that he wrote, but he wrote another book that is actually more specific to the topic that I'm talking about, which is a book he wrote called All the Shah's Men. That's all. I'll type it into the chat here. That's the book that really hits on thing that I know of, that hits much more on the topic that I've been talking about. And I'll put the author's name in here as well, just in case you didn't see it. Stephen Kinzer. He's really good. Now, I've not read All the Shah's Men, but the book that I just showed you, I have it and read it, and it's a really good book, which talks more generally about regime change. And understand one other thing. This is all about money and resources. That's what it is. And Mossadegh, I talked about Mossadegh back in 1953, when he was overthrown, and when he was what I'm trying to say, when the coup took place to get rid of him, overthrown, right? Mossadegh had nationalized oil in Iran. In the 1950s, he nationalized oil, which meant that Iran had that oil production. They did not privatize it. They did not outsource it for privatization purposes, right? What happened in Venezuela when Hugo Chavez was in charge? What did he do in Venezuela? Hugo Chavez, he nationalized the oil in Venezuela. Chavez died several years ago, and then Maduro came in, Of course, the election results were definitely not his to win because he didn't win, but he stayed in power. He got in power and lost his election, but he stayed in power, right? And the nationalization of Venezuela's oil continued up until when? January the 3rd, 2026, when guess who came in and guess who illegally invaded and bombed that country? Donald J. Trump. This is about oil and resources and money. 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 And this has happened in all kinds of regimes. And this has happened so often. Yvette talks about Mexico did this under Lázaro Cárdenas in the 1930s. I believe you're talking about the nationalization of the oil, Yvette. And I believe that's absolutely right. Yes. It's always about oil. Absolutely. And money to be made off of it. And I saw somebody in here, and I know I'm going a little bit over 8 o'clock, but I saw somebody here. And Yvette, yes, absolutely. Cardenas in 1930, Yvette, thank you for confirming. Um, the United States, and again, this book talks about all of this in pretty good detail too, about the whole thing about oil and resources. But even you don't have to read a book like this to know this. It's if you know the history, and I'd like to think I'm a pretty good learner and student of history. This has happened in so many countries, and the United States has been doing this forever. There's a great book called White Malice that talks about the CIA's role on the African continent, written by Susan Williams, another historian who's done really good work with this. She talks about John Dulles, talks about Kennedy, talks about Eisenhower. It's just unreal the kinds of things that the United States does, that if you really, really, really wanted to, it would actually make you want to throw up, and a lot worse than that. But this is a really good book as well. I really recommend. It's called White Malice on the African continent, what the CIA was really doing to colonize um, the African continent. So that's another book. Um, but I want you to be a really discerning and careful reader, okay? Discernment is something I've written about. Discernment, being careful about the information, being a critical thinker, being someone who takes great pains to analyze, because I think process is a big thing that technology is eviscerating. We've got Siri, we've got Alexa, we've got Cortana, and we just ask them something, right? We don't think, I mean, we do think, but we don't think like we used to as much, right? Some of us rely on these automated voices, but we need to go back to process again, all right? People, exactly, Brittany. This is what I was going to get to. Brittany writes, checking sources, research, do the work. That's what we have to do. We cannot afford to be lazy. Brittany said it exactly. We have to do the work, check sources, research things. All these news organizations today, they all reported that Trump says that he's dead. I mean, they reported that, and they have a right to report it. But does that mean that he's dead just because that liar says so? I mean, this is a guy that the Washington Post cited in his first term lied over 30,573 times. So we have to read more. We have to fact check. We have to analyze. And I know it might seem like but that's what we used to do before these phones. We used to walk to our local libraries if we didn't know something, right? We have to think about the information we're getting. Some of these news stations, pure propaganda. A lot of them are. Al Jazeera has been very good. Al Jazeera is the only thing I've come across today that's really been very good, right? But I want you to be a discerning reader, and I want you to be careful with what you're reading. Just think about, does this make sense to me, right? Study the history, right? It doesn't take that long, all right? I mean, we're students of history, and we have to get to what the facts are. Facts are really important. I really appreciate you smashing these hearts. I really would love you to subscribe if you haven't already done. Please become a paid subscriber. Very, very important, because I give away books. I give away prizes for paid subscribers only. I give away things like this. right? I give away all kinds of other books. I have Vice President Harris's book around. I've got a few copies of that to give away. I've got lots of other things to give away. And thank you, Brittany. I really appreciate that. So please, please, please do subscribe. Become a paid subscriber if you can. That'd be greatly appreciated. The last thing I want to say, and thank you very much, Kimmy, others, because I will be giving away. In fact, tomorrow, if I mean, it's been such a. I usually only do this on weekends because I'm just busy like crazy during the week, and sometimes I don't even get a chance to do it the weekend. But tomorrow, I'm going to try to fit in some time to give away some prizes, and if you become a paid subscriber, you get put into a draw in a random drawing, right? Your name gets put in as a paid subscriber, and you have a chance to win one prize of the following: any number of the books, brand new books that I'm going to give away, including Vice President Harris's 107 Days. Also, the book, you have a chance, and these are the choice of prizes, right? Also, Virginia Giuffre's book, you could win that. You can pick that one if you want to, called Nobody's Girl. You have a chance of winning a $25 gift certificate that is not from Target and not from Amazon. Okay. You have a chance to, you could pick from that or two movie tickets, a ticket for two to a movie coming up. I mean, there's a number of things. So it really pays. It really, really pays to be a pay subscriber to my Substack. Okay, I've already given away prizes to some subscribers. In fact, one of the subscribers who's a pay subscriber received one of the prizes, which was actually which that paid subscriber received this week. And by the way, when your name is put into a drawing, I only put your initials in, right? As a paid subscriber, I don't put your name out there because I don't know that you haven't consented for me to do that as a paid subscriber. And so, what I'm very discerning about is being mindful of those kinds of things. So only your initials go in to the drawing, right? So then I notify you privately if your name comes out of the hat. So, and I'll do it live here, but I will notify, but you will only see the initials of the paid subscribers. So this is the thing I do here, right? And I do really recommend that you subscribe, whether paid or free. But again, that's what you get if you become a paid subscriber. You also get a newsletter from me every Sunday. In fact, I'm working on it now, that has a lot of stories that haven't been talked about over the last few days or weeks that you will get from me, plus some other extras that are really, really good that you don't get really seen, that you don't get to see in a lot of other places or feeds. So that's why it really does pay to become a paid subscriber. That's exclusively for you as a paid subscriber. And it takes work, it takes diligence, it takes time, it takes fact checking, it takes everything. So those are the last things that I'm going to say. And keep your eye on what's going on in Iran. Remember, just a quick reminder again, back in June of last year, this whole lie that Israel concocted about, oh, Iran's got a nuclear weapon, which they don't. Remember, there was a 12-year war, 12-day war, sorry, in June of 2025, which the U.S. really amplified because Netanyahu wanted that so desperately from the U.S. And Trump, of course, because of who he is, does that, right? So for 12 days, bombs dropped, and Trump declared, "Oh, mission accomplished. We got rid of the nuclear weapons program. We got rid of any capability." And what did the Iranians say? Actually, you really didn't do anything because we moved all the things that we were building on or working on anyway to some warehouse. So you didn't do anything. And by the way, as I said earlier, it was you, Donald Trump, who actually got rid of Obama's joint comprehensive plan of action, which actually would have prevented any building of any material to make nuclear weapons with. So the guy who comes in after Obama rips up the 2015 joint comprehensive plan of action, and then in 2025 bombs Iran and goes, "Oh, we got rid of the nuclear program." Well, dude, you wouldn't have had to bomb anything if you had left Obama's Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action in place. I mean, as war criminal George W. Bush would say, I mean, that's fuzzy math, right? I mean, so that's the whole thing that just makes me laugh. So the bottom line is that that happened in 2025 in June, and what's happened if in February the 28th of 2026? Yeah, yeah, oh, let's go in and bomb them again. It's just absolutely crazy. So one thing I've not mentioned, this is the last thing I will mention. And as Kimmy says, the math isn't math, and Kimmy, absolutely not. One thing, and this is really sinful, I didn't even mention this. People are dead. I can't believe I didn't even mention that top of the line here. Our taxpayer money has gone to the killing of at least 80 children in an elementary school in Iran. At least 80 at last count. These are children. Okay? So all of this thing about family values and protecting children, oh yeah, the Epstein files, protecting children. All of that nonsense. It further shows you just the depths of how evil these people are. More than 80, and that number's going to go up. More than 80 children at an elementary school were killed in Trump and Israel's bombing. And by the way, let me say something else to you before we go here. Al Jazeera reported about an hour before I started this live with you, and thank you very much for watching. Al Jazeera reported that more than 201 people had been killed so far in Iran. More than 201. Now, that was about an hour and a half ago. Lord knows what it's going to be by the time you and I wake up tomorrow morning. This is the thing, and our taxpayer money is going to this. Think about that. Here's what we can do, because I also like to, I like to provide solutions, okay? Because I want to leave you with a solution. Because the analysis is fairly easy. And presenting the history is not necessarily easy, but you just have to know what the hell you're talking about. And you have to be able to have sources of information. I provided you some books, and I'm going to do one other book. I talked about Alan Dulles, the Dulles brothers, and the CIA, and how they had a hand in the overthrow of Mossadegh, Iran's leader, in 1953. Well, here's another good book. So, I mean, Dulles Airport, they're talking about this guy. Dulles Airport in DC, I guess it is. That's the guy it's named after. Alan Dulles. Oh yeah. And by the way, JFK had Alan Dulles fired in, I forgot what year, maybe 62 or in early 63. He had him. There he is right there, and there's JFK next to him. So, you know, so if you want more, and this is quite a sordid book, but if you want to know more about the CIA role under Alan Dulles, head of the CIA at the time, then this is the book to get. David Talbot, he's done a really good job of this book. If you really want to go into it, that's how you do it. It's called The Devil's Chessboard. Thank you, Donna, for typing it. I'm going to also put these in a kind of a summary of this, because, as I said, I'm going to post the 47 Traders letter, plus I'm going to write the titles of these books. Thank you, Donna. But like I was saying, keep an eye on what's going on. I want you, here's a solution. I want you to call your senators and express how you feel to them. Okay. I want you to make those phone calls, right? I want you to make those phone calls to, and I'm going to type the phone numbers in for the DC Congressional Switchboard, because we all can do this, right? We are not powerless. You have more power than you think, right? And what I'm doing now is typing in the phone numbers for the DC Congressional Switchboard, right? So those are the two numbers. You can call the senators more directly if you want, but those two numbers I just put in, those are the numbers you need to call, right? And there is the 5 Calls app, as Kimmy has mentioned. That's a good app as well. But please call these folks. Let them know how you feel. They're supposed to represent you. We, the people, we have much more power than these folks actually do. We're the ones that dictate what happens around here. Right? I mean, yes, they're in Congress and yes, they've got power, but my gosh, we have power as well. There's more of us than there are of them. And we're the ones that have to act. We have to have a plan of action. And that's really another thing. Our plan of action. What is yours? What is mine? We have to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what am I going to do in 2026? One of the things I'm going to do, and I know hopefully you're going to do this too, I'm sure you will, is vote, right? Call all of these folks. Empathy is a superpower is correct, right? Congress, by the way, did you know that the Senate is part of Congress? I know people say the House of Representatives, Congress, but the United States Congress is actually consists of the two bicameral houses, the House and the Senate. That's all called Congress, by the way. A lot of people don't realize that, but it's true. It's true. Call them both, Senate and House. Please, 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 right? Call your reps. Call reps that aren't in your district. Call everyone. Please call whoever you feel you need to call, right? Even the people you take for granted are pro or con against what's happening, this atrocity, this war crime, this international violation, the violation of international law, violation of the UN Charter. It's absolutely criminal what's happening. Call your Republican senators or all of them. I don't care who they are. Maybe you're in a so-called red state. Call them. I don't care who they are. Call them. They need to hear from you. Okay. And then you know what you have to do? Develop a plan of action as to what else you want to do. Like-minded people. Come together. You've got friends on Substack here. Develop a little network amongst yourselves. Have your meetings online, on a Zoom, in person. Have a meeting and say, here's what I want to do. Here's what we should do. Let's address these issues. Let's address issues to people that we're interested in primarying. Let's address issues to candidates right now. Let's address issues so we can run for something. And it doesn't have to be a federal office. It doesn't have to be. It can be something local in your neighborhood. Local things. Dog catcher. It could be state. It could be a school board position. But what we have to do is get active. And yes, there's a No Kings rally exactly a month from today. That's good. That's fine. But I'm sorry, that's a whole month away. We can't just wait until the next No Kings rally, because to me, that's not nearly enough. We have to act. And protest is important. Peaceful protest is really, really important. But phone calls to me are also very important too. Making that phone call is very important. And if you think that these folks don't get your phone call, you're mistaken. They actually do. These senators and these congresspersons, these House members, they do get your phone call because their staffers or their aides actually relay it to them. They actually do. They actually get to either listen to it, hear it. They actually do get to do that. You can send an email if you wish as well, what's going on. If you're more comfortable sending email, fine, you can do that. If you're more comfortable writing a letter, fine, you can do that. Phone calls are really effective though. Why do I say that? Because they hear your voice. Now, if you're someone who is not able to speak vocally, right, then that's obviously understandable. Then you're not going to make a phone call, right? If you're unable to speak, then understandably obviously you're not going to make a phone call. You're going to probably write something. But if you're but even if you can speak, if you're more comfortable emailing, you can email. You just have to go and find out what the email addresses are. I don't have them with me, but the phone calls are really powerful and potent because they hear you, they hear your voice, they hear the way you feel, and you convey to them in no uncertain terms. And you might get a staffer if they pick up, you might get a voicemail, but let them know how you feel. I'm not saying you have to go curse them out. But you've got to just let them know how you're feeling. Okay. That's what I want to say. I want to end with the solution because the solution is for us to get involved and obviously vote. check your voter registration, check it twice a month at least. Doesn't matter if you're in the state of California or if you're in Iowa or Idaho or Washington State or North Carolina or Mississippi. Check your voter registration, okay? Very, very important. Very important because we know what's going on with the voting. I'm going to talk about that on another edition of Live with Omar Moore. You have been watching that. Thank you so much, Empathy. Really appreciate that. Very, very good. And Kimmy is voting on Tuesday. All right, Kimmy. Very, very good. There's a primary on Tuesday in Texas. And be well, everybody. Please vote. Okay. Tell your friends to vote. Have a plan to vote. Whatever you do, have a plan to vote in the primaries and, of course, in the midterms. Make sure you get educated on all these things, on the rules. Be ready for it. Thank you so much, everyone. I know I've kept you a little bit longer than I wanted to. Please go and watch. And yes, Crockett, please vote Crockett in Texas. Please vote Crockett, please. Vice President Harris endorsed her yesterday. Vice President Harris made a statement where I'm going to post a video statement I'll post for you as well. So thank you, everyone. Please subscribe. Please be a paid subscriber. We'd greatly appreciate that. Or a free subscriber. Thank you all. Please now watch the live edition of the NAACP Image Awards on the CBS and BET and BET television, now in progress. Take care, everybody. I'll do this again, try to give away these prizes for paid subscribers only tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Thank you so very much indeed. And have a good rest of your evening and get a good night's sleep. Self-care is so, so important, as is your mental health. Be well. Good night.